could be on your way with 3 mates. Watch the Footy Show, listen to 5AA Sports Show and win. Book your AFL travel now at extragreen.com.au. Extraordinary places, extraordinary price.
Get interactive now.
Text 1999 1395.
1395 Adelaide's 5AA.
17 minutes past 5. Let's get an update of news from across the ditch in New Zealand. Selwyn Manning from livenews.co.nz. G'day, Selwyn. How's things?
Yeah, very good, Peter. How are things over there?
Oh, not too bad. Not too bad. Tell me your good snow ski season really in full swing.
Yeah, no, it's
Lots
been
of snow.
snowing all week, particularly down in the South Island slopes, but also in the central North Island. Mount Ruapehu, its 2 ski fields there are perfect, apparently, and the fine weather's coming across from you guys. Must be a bit of a reprieve your side a few days ago or something. Well, it's just about here, and they're expecting exceptionally good skiing conditions for the weekend. So if someone's got a little bit of cash in their back pocket and they think, I can get a plane across, have a bit of a ski, it's perfect conditions for that.
Envious to anyone that's able to do that.
They could fly into Auckland and they'd be down on the ski slopes about 3 hours later if they drove, and away they go.
Oh, dear. Well, sadly, it won't be me this week, but you never know. All right, on to some news. Now, I mean, we've in recent weeks, a lot of concern about our power prices going up, and we've had our power assets privatised for some time now. You're heading that way. Your Parliament's just passed legislation that will permit the partial sell-off. So what is being sold?
What's been sold is most of the government's significant energy producing companies, Peter, and the Nationals campaigned on this in the election last year in November. The public kind of had concerns about it, but still voted that way with the popular vote, meaning it voted for the party as opposed to the policy. A lot of polling was done right through the campaign, and certainly on this issue, and the public, by way of majority, was saying, no, we want the assets to stay within public hands. We saw polling on this right through the year, and it's been a consistent thing where the government, while it's been reasonably popular in most areas of handling the economy, etc., this particular policy seems to go against New Zealanders' wants. And I think a lot of it, too, is the culture here. We saw this wave of selling off state-owned assets to the private and corporate sector back in the late 1980s and certainly in the first half of the 90s decade. And what occurred there was then New Zealand, when the Clark-led government was in the early 2000s, had to rebuy back some of these assets that had been sold. Kiwi Rail, for example, had been sold off to overseas interests, and it was run down to the point where lines were having to be decommissioned because they were no longer a state that could carry a train, for example. Air New Zealand got into a similar situation where the government had to buy in and buy a majority of Air New Zealand to actually sort it out, this financial mess out. So I think the public have seen these turns and roundabouts that have occurred. And yes, looking across the ditch at the experience that you guys have experienced, the privatisation of the energy sector seems to have racked the prices up as opposed to providing a competitive model that keeps it down, from my understanding. So there are concerns right across. But yes, the government put the legislation before the House this week just passed, and it passed a couple of days ago. The opposition says this fight for these asset sales is not over yet, meaning that it's trying all sorts of ways of stimulating a public response to it. But the law has gone through. The government is determined to put them out to the stock market. It's a partial sell-off, meaning that just the government would hold just a majority, the public would hold just a majority in the ownership of them, just over the 50%, and the rest would be put on the stock market. There's a poll in the Fairfax news site over here, stuff.co.nz, and it's showing that 46% said the government had a mandate to sell the partial sell-off of these assets, and 53.5% are saying no. The law only passed by one vote. And Peter, what they're talking about there is the House was completely divided right down to the line. The government had to put pressure on one of its centrist coalition partners, a party called United Future, which has one MP in the House, the Honourable Peter Dunn. And Peter Dunn was getting pressure from all sides, but he determinedly put his vote for the government to sell these off this week, and so he's been criticised widely yesterday.
Okay. So how much money will this sell-off raise? Is that known as yet, or that remains to be seen?
Well, this remains to be seen. The estimates run from a very low $3 billion up to potential $7 billion. So in between that huge band is the problem for the government, in the sense that when all of these shares go on to the stock market in one go, obviously the oversupply factor kicks in, and whether or not demand is there to actually adjust those prices into a reasonable area will remain to be seen. So the rhetoric that is coming from the government is we need a top up, we need a cash injection into the government coffers to offset the borrowing that has gone on in recent years. Some public say, well, you guys are the ones that were doing all the borrowing, Then others are saying, well, no, the government is right here. It actually needs a cash injection. There's been all sorts of things like the Christchurch earthquake, etc., that have drained the coffers to a degree where it needs this kind of thing. Others are saying, and the majority of the public seem to be saying, well, okay, that's fair enough, but really this is a short-term Band-Aid type of arrangement here. Once the returns from these companies is divided down by half, the country's economy is going to be affected in the medium and long term from not having that resource or that return of the cash back into it trickling in from its profit.
And those figures you're talking about, the sale might realise that's only going to be a small percentage of the debt that New Zealand has. It's fairly high, your debt, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It doesn't go anywhere near addressing that. I mean, the government in recent months has been carving back into the rate of borrowing that it's been doing. It, like we were all talking about midway last year, that the government was fast getting itself into a situation where it was borrowing largely from Northern Hemisphere lenders, and that the conditions up in Northern Hemisphere were starting to show signs, and certainly showing signs, where those interest rates were going to be fluctuating upwards on a trend. And the government is obviously factoring that in now and is thinking, oh, we better shift our borrowing to other sectors of the globe that are not so high, or we better start to reduce the borrowing rate, which they have been doing. So there are some indicators in the New Zealand economy that are favourable, but some are saying too, and it does seem that there's a reasonableness to the rhetoric that the government should have been, embarking on a reduction plan far sooner than it did.
Yeah. Is there any talk about any mechanism within the SAO to ensure that prices don't escalate like we're the problem we're having here? Can there be any controls on future costs of energy there?
No, the government for some time here, even though it's owned these state-owned assets, it's been within a competitive private type of model, if you like. So the deregulation around it has been in existence for quite some time. The fear is that, taking that on side, that with private external investment into the companies, that the expectation and the demand from the shareholders will ratchet up the prices all round. And when you've got 5 significant energy companies that have been put out into the partial sale here, then there's a concern that there'll be a certain degree of price gouging that goes on. The non-regulatory kind of models that New Zealand's been running these things on render the government almost unable to do anything about that. There are all sorts of ways that, in a soft way, that it's been trying to address that by putting it back onto the consumer and saying these are ways that you can actually minimise your energy costs, and that's like turning the appliances off at the, like your television and your stereo systems, etc., your computers, turning them off at the wall instead of leaving them on standby. And there've been quite a lot of government-sponsored adverts on TV in that vein in the last few weeks. Okay. So you can see where they're going with that, Peter, putting it back onto the consumer.
Much like here, indeed.
Yeah.
Now, we've only got a little bit of time, so can only quickly touch on this one, but the 2012 UN drug report shows that Kiwis and Aussies are big cannabis users. Maybe
we've been on the old smoke pipe a bit there, Peter.
Yeah, worrying about the power prices, so...
worrying about the power prices and finding a remedy to it.
Yeah.
But yes, the use of cannabis is right up there, apparently in New Zealand and Australia at between 9.1 and 14.6%. Now, that is followed by North America way back at around 10 to 10.8%. So certainly on the New Zealand side, there's also concerns that the intravenous drug use is high and right up there with levels in Belarus and France. New Zealand is amongst that group, so that's obviously a huge concern.
Yeah.
Of course, methamphetamine use is widespread all over the world, and certainly, I think you refer to it as ice across there in Australia.
Yeah.
We refer to it as P here, and that's shocking kind of levels all over the place by the look of the report. But if people are interested in that, Peter, they just simply need to go to a search engine like Google and put in United Nations Drug Report 2012, and they'll be able to see all the detail there. And it's a fascinating and thorough read.
And frightening too.
Yes.
Selwyn, many thanks. We'll talk to you again next week.
Okay, Peter. Take care.
Bye-bye. Selwyn Manning in New Zealand, livenews.co.nz to read more. It's 5:28.
At Australia Post, we're here to make your EOFY EASY. FYI, you can SAVE when you buy Express Post in bulk. End of financial year made easy at Australia Post. That's EOFY made EASY. Service conditions apply. See ozpost.com.au for details.
AFL Multicultural Round recognises how diverse our great game is.
Harry O'Brien heads the goal.
Football has the ability to bring people together from all backgrounds, whether it's cheering together at a match, having a kick in a park, or becoming a member of your team. It's great to get involved.
Join us in celebrating AFL Multicultural Round from June 29 to July 1st. To learn about Australia's game or to buy tickets, go to afl.com.au.
Many cultures, one game, Australia's game.
Hello, Jack's Plumbing.
Oh, hi, Jack. Look, I'm so happy with the Renai Infinity gas hot water system you installed.
Good.
I want to replace my electric heating with gas heating. It's freezing outside.
You want a Renai gas heater?
I do?
Yep. It's durable, reliable, has a high star energy rating, reduced running costs compared to electric, has less greenhouse gas emissions, makes the room warm and comfortable. And don't tell me... You want it done right now.
Make the switch to Renai gas heating for up to $200 cash back. Conditions apply. Go to renai.com.au. Why? Because it's Renai.
Get organised for the 2012 Be Active Corporate Cup. It's back with over 1,000 businesses and groups getting behind it. Maybe you need some team building at work or just want to get some mates together for some fun. Sign up for the Be Active Corporate Cup. There are 4 locations around Adelaide plus 3 starting points in the city. You don't have to be a super athlete, just give it a go. For information and to register for the Be Active Corporate Cup, go to sa.lifebein.org. Proudly supported by 1395 Adelaide's 5AA.
It's Keith and JK here. Now, we want to bring you closer to the real Downton Abbey.
Watch Downton Abbey, Sunday, 8:30 on Channel 7. Look out for the code word. Then listen to 5AA Breakfast on Monday.
You could win a holiday for 2 to the UK, including return flights, accommodation and sightseeing, valued at $8,000. That's thanks to Visit UK, the great British travel shop.
Watch Downton Abbey on 7 and listen to 5AA Breakfast to win.